भ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay, so we will continue with our third chapter revision today. To the last section of this chapter. So just to tell you, there are 5 sections in this chapter. The third chapter, Karam Yoga, we had covered up the 4 sections. The first section was Arjuna's confusion. He was confused, like what is Buddhi Yoga? Should he give up his using his intelligence? Should he give up his work at totally, or he should do action, because Krishna is telling him to get up and fight. So what should he do? He was confused. Renunciation or action? Then Krishna told him about Nishkam Karam Yoga, that no, Gyan Yoga, okay, using your knowledge, you want to renounce everything, but immature renunciation is of no use. So it's good to engage in Nishkam Karam Yoga. So that was the second section. Then third section, Krishna told that even if somebody is not at the level of performing Nishkam Karam Yoga, he can start from Karam Kand. Start from Karam Kand, get purified, go to Karam Yoga then. And then in the fourth section, Krishna told that Nishkam Karam Yoga, even if you are above that level, you are at the level of Gyan or Bhakti, still you perform Nishkam Karam Yoga, Arjuna, to set the example for others. So this was also the answer for that, that dynasty thing, Van Shankara, destruction of dynasty. That no, you set up the right example by fighting, then your dynasty will be safe. Krishna gave his example also, that I also did it and all. So, and today the last section, fifth section, when we're covering up, this is about conquering lust, the greatest enemy. So now till like 35th verse, we understood that 35th verse was, it is far better to perform one's own duties even in a faulty way than doing another's duties perfectly. And even death in the course of doing one's duty is beneficial, but to follow another's path is dangerous. Now in the next section, the because in 3.34, not 35, the verse before that, Krishna has talked about raga and dvesh, attachment and aversion. So Arjuna now asks that, a living entity, a jiva, is attached to the sense objects, even though it is forbidden by scriptures. He knows that, this raga and dvesh is not good for me, but still it is very difficult for him to give that up. And because of that attachment, he gets into sinful activities. So what do we do in that case? So now Krishna is telling, verse number 36. Api chetasi papebhya vrijanam santarishyasi. So papam charati. No, he does sins. Anichan. Without his icha also he does sins. One second. Just, yeah. So verse number 36, third chapter. Anichan api varshnaya balad eva niyojitah. That's something by force. Balad. Balad is force. By force of something, one is getting into, without even icha, anichan, one is getting into sinful activities. So what is it? Why is it happening? O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So from verse number 37, Krishna starts answering them. 37 to 40 now. Krishna will give the answer to this question of Arjuna. And what is the answer? What is that thing which forces one into all these activities? Lust. Lust leads to degradation. So lust causes material entanglement. In verse number 37, Krishna is telling that the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So we have got some minute independence. So if we misuse that, then we are just gone. So Krishna is telling, how the lust, the attachment, the cause of the sinful tendency is calm, which transforms it then into wrath. And that is because of the influence of Rajoguna. And it is mahashano, mahapapam. Mahapapam is greatly sinful. Mahashano is all devouring. It just eats up everything. Varinam, it is the greatest enemy of the person. And what is this lust now? Lust is the tendency to enjoy independent of the Lord. That is the independence Krishna has given us, the minute independence. How we want to enjoy that, that will decide our path. So if you want to enjoy independent of Krishna, we want to satisfy our own senses, then we get into this cycle. So that is the greatest enemy. This is a very important verse here. Kamesha krodha esha rajo gun samudabhav. So love is when we satisfy Krishna's senses, and lust is when we satisfy our senses. Lust doesn't mean just one thing. Any way, whatever way we try to satisfy our senses, that is lust. Okay, so then in the next verse, what Krishna is telling about is the degrees of this covering of lust. That we all are influenced by lust, but in varied degrees. So in verse number 38, Krishna is talking about the degrees of the lust. So he's telling the first part, Dhomen avaritya vahanir, that is as fire is covered by smoke. That is slight covering of lust. An example for that is human beings, because our consciousness is at the highest level, human beings. That's why it's a special birth. And then is yatha darsho malena cha. Darsho is like जिसमें हमें दर्शन होता है, mirror. So as a mirror is covered by dust, malen, dirt. So that is the medium level of covering of lust. An example for that is in animals. They have consciousness, but not like humans, not that developed. Then the third degree is yathol bhenavarato garbhas, garbh, as the embryo is covered by womb. So this type of covering is intense. The example for this is trees and plants and all. Tatha tenedam avratam. The conditioned jivas in this world are covered by lust like this. So these are the 3 degrees of lust. So shallow, deep, and then it is very deep. So we are at the shallow level now, and it's a very good chance for us to uncover this covering and get out of it. Then in verse number 39, Krishna is telling that this lust is never satisfied. This is the quality of the lust. We knew that what is our enemy? Lust. What are the degrees? This. Now, what is the quality of this lust? The lust is dushpurena anelena cha. Dushpurena. It's never satisfied. Analena cha. That means it burns like fire. Anala. Avratam jnanam. Jnanam is covered by kamarupena. Kamarupena kaunteya. So jnana is covered by this kamarup in the form of lust. Our knowledge is covered. It is this calm, especially sense gratification, which keeps one shackled in this material world. Because of tendency to enjoy, one has desires, and to fulfill those desires, one takes different bodies. And therefore, the so-called happiness is our greatest enemy. The thing which we are taking to be our, best friend, we are happy. That is our greatest enemy, because it keeps us bound in the material world. And then the other thing, lust is never satisfied. The important thing we understand from this verse is lust is never satisfied. So just one desire, then I'll be satisfied. Let me just fulfill this desire, then I'll be all set. No. The more we try to satisfy the material desires, the more they grow. It's like adding fuel to the fire. Some people say that let us fulfill all our desires. We have taken this birth to fulfill our desires. Let's do that, and then we will practice bhakti. No, it doesn't work like that. It's like adding fuel to the fire. So these desires will never get satisfied. Rather, they will burn more and more. Verse number 40. Now Krishna is telling us about the location of the lust. So this is so wonderful. Krishna has told us about our enemy. And then we have to find out to what degree this enemy is attacking us. Then what is the quality of this lust? And now he's also telling us the position, the location of this enemy, so that we can attack it. What is the location? There are 3 locations of the lust. The senses, the mind and the intelligence. These are the seats of this lust. Verse number 40, we understand that the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Okay. Now, verse number 41 to 43, Krishna tells how to conquer lust. Verse number 41. Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, that is lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So the first step to kill this enemy, to counter this enemy, is control our senses. Tasmat, therefore, adan, first of all. Then is niyama, regulating, indriyami. So that is senses. So Krishna is telling, first of all, regulate your senses for controlling this. Why? Why? Because senses are much more easier to control than mind. They are gross and mind is subtle. We talked about so many examples for this verse. How when we sit for chanting, it's difficult to control the mind, but we can control our senses. We can sit at one place, we can close our eyes, we can put our hand in the bead bag, we can keep, moving the beads with the help of our finger and all that. So that is easier than controlling the mind. So first of all, control your senses. And then verse number 42. Yeah. Verse number 42. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he is the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So Krishna is here giving the hierarchy of senses, mind, intelligence, and soul. Sense objects are at the bottommost. Superior to the sense objects are the senses, because they enjoy the sense objects. And then superior to the senses is the mind, because mind controls the senses. And superior to the mind is the intelligence, because it has got the discrimination power. And highest, even above the intelligence, is the soul. Because why soul is the highest? Because only because of presence of the soul, everything else is functioning. If soul is out, intelligence, mind, senses, nothing can do anything. So soul is the highest. So basically everything has to be engaged in Krishna's services. Senses engaged, but if mind is contemplating upon something else, then senses can divert in some time. So that is just a step. First control your senses, then go to the mind. And when the mind is distracted, it will force the senses to stop and not engage in Krishna's service. So we have to control the mind also. We have to engage mind actually. And how to do that? Next verse, 43 verse, Krishna is telling that. Thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. Prabhupada is saying Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Insatiable, the enemy which is never satisfied. How much ever we serve it, it will never be satisfied and pleased by our services. So can conquer it. This is the last verse, 43rd verse. Conquer it by deliberate spiritual intelligence. So to control the mind, we have to make our intelligence sharp. So in this purport also, Prabhupada is summarizing the whole thing, the entire chapter. So one has the desire to enjoy independent of the Lord. That is called lust. We want to lord over the nature. Then how to purify it by performing Nishkam Karam Yoga. And Nishkam Karam Yoga, do your prescribed duties without being attached to the result. And then this calm, this lust, it gets purified. Our desire gets purified. We engage it in Krishna service. So we have to make our intelligence stronger, and then only we can control the mind. And we start with the senses, but if mind is not in control, senses can get diverted in some way. So mind also has to be controlled with the help of the spiritual intelligence. Okay, so we conclude this third chapter here, Jai Srila Prabhupada. So we'll start with the fourth chapter. Any questions so far from this chapter?
No, Mataji.
Okay, so we'll start with the fourth chapter now, transcendental knowledge. So transcendental knowledge. So this chapter also, it has got 6 sections now. Okay, now what is the link? Now so far Krishna was talking about karam yoga, nishkam karam yoga and all he told, and then he told about the enemy lust also, and then now he's all of a sudden moving on to transcendental knowledge. What is the connection between the two? So what do we understand in the previous chapter? Now just the last section we saw, Krishna described how lust causes material bondage and how we can curb it. The very last verse we did was by deliberate spiritual intelligence. So now in this chapter, Krishna presents the transcendental knowledge by which we can be protected. We get that transcendental intelligence, the spiritual intelligence. Okay, and in the previous chapters, Krishna also described Nishkam Karma Yoga, that how we have to just perform our duties in a detached manner. So that is the means to attain Gyan. When we keep doing that, we attain the Gyan. That is the goal of the Nishkam Karma Yoga. We get the knowledge. So in this chapter now, Krishna presents that Gyan, the transcendental knowledge. And he will also talk about the glories of such Gyan. So let's see the section. The first section is from verse number 1 to 4. Here Krishna is talking about the lineage of the transcendental knowledge. So Krishna will start talking about that. Okay, let me tell you about this Gyan now, how it started and how it moved on. And then the parampara, it just got distracted. The second section, verse number 5 to 10, Krishna is talking about the divine nature of Lord Krishna's appearance. So what happens is when Krishna tells him about that, how it was moving down from Krishna to sun god and so on, and then he had given this knowledge to sun god long back. So Arjuna had a question that how could you give it to sun god? The sun god was born much before you. You are like my peer, my friend. So then from next verse number 5 to 10, Krishna tells about his nature of appearance and his activities and all. So he talks about his uniqueness. And then verse number 11 to 15, then Krishna tells that how he reciprocates with everybody according to their mood of worship. So even if people worship demigods or worship him directly, he reciprocates accordingly. And how he has created the 4 varnas, but Krishna doesn't get affected by all these things, the activities here. And verse number 16 to 24, then Krishna tells how understanding karma, on the platform of jnana we have to do. So he talks about the intricacies of karma. It is very difficult to understand. So how we have to see inaction in action and action in inaction and all that. And then in the next section, attaining gyan through sacrifice, that is yajna. So he talks about different types of sacrifices. And last section, he talks about the method, the results, and the glories of the attaining gyan, that how this gyan then helps us. So we will start from the first section where Krishna is telling about the lineage of the transcendental knowledge, the parampara in which this knowledge was given. So verse number 1 and 2, Krishna is telling that the saintly kings had understood this knowledge, in the beginning. Verse number 1, the personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashvan. And Vivashvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind. And Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku. Verse number 2, he says, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. And in the third verse, then Krishna is telling that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science. So because okay, now from the fourth verse, Arjuna will put the question. So far Krishna is telling that this is how it was going on, then it was lost, so now I have picked you up to give this knowledge, to re-establish the parampara. And why Arjuna is picked up for this service? Because of the two reasons. Arjuna is Krishna's devotee and friend, bhakta and sakha. So this is the quality of receiving this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. We should not be envious of Krishna. Bhakto asime sakha cheti. So, and then he's also saying that rahasyam hai etad uttamam. Rahasyam, that this mystery I'm telling you. Now, why Bhagavad Gita is a mystery? It's an open book. We distribute it freely to everybody. Everywhere it is being distributed every day. Then how come it is a mystery? It is a mystery because it is revealed. The knowledge within is revealed when one is not envious of Krishna. Rather, he is friendly to Krishna. He is a devotee of Krishna. If you surrender to Krishna, then the transformation of the heart that takes place. Otherwise, this book remains a mystery, even if everybody can hold it and read it. So that mood we have to adopt, the mood of Arjuna. So Krishna is telling that point over here. Then in verse number 4, Arjuna asked the question, the sun god Vivashwan is born before you. How can I understand that you spoke this science to him? So here we understand, Prabhupada helps us to understand that why Arjuna raised this question. This is for the benefit of the common people. Arjuna, of course, knew that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's no birth and death for him like us. He doesn't have a material body. So he asked this question specifically to Krishna for us so that Krishna speaks about himself, his birth, his glories, and Krishna could establish everything about himself very authentically. People would not have any doubts about Krishna's birth and his activities. So Arjuna wanted Krishna himself to speak about his birth and glories. Now, verse number 5, Krishna will start answering. He will start talking about his appearance and uniqueness, his time and his purpose, why he appears here, and what is the time of his appearance, and how his appearance is unique from everybody's appearance. Verse number 5, the personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So verse number 6, Krishna says, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. So this is the uniqueness of Krishna's appearance. And he's telling Aja, unborn. Although I'm unborn, I'm eternal. How the soul is eternal, it's a never kill. So Krishna is telling, I'm not born. He's avyaya. His body doesn't deteriorate. It never changes like our bodies, like any other material body. It undergoes 6 types of changes. Krishna's body doesn't undergo any change. It's avyaya. And okay, so that's the uniqueness of his appearance. You can read the purport also then. And in verse number 7, now Krishna is telling about time of his appearance. Yada yada hi dharmasya. So we all can understand very easily. When does he appear? What is the time of his appearance? Whenever and wherever there is, number 1, a decline in dharma or religious practices. Glanir bhavati, dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. And then second reason is abhyuthanam adharmasya tada atmanam srajami aham. Predominant rise of adharmasya or irreligion. At that time, I descend myself. So these are the 2 reasons. Whenever there is a decline in dharma and there is a predominant rise of adharma or irreligion. So Krishna's, these are the 2 reasons. Yeah, we understand about the various other reasons also. He wants to please his devotees. He wants to perform pastimes with his devotees. So, but these are the other 2 reasons Krishna is giving here. Just a second. Okay. This is verse number 7. Verse number 8 now. Again, this is the time of Krishna's appearance. Now, purpose is telling in the next verse, that is 8th verse. Paritranaya sadhunam, to deliver the pious people, sadhu people. Vinashaya cha dushkratam, to annihilate the dush people, dushkratam, miscreants. Then is dharma sanstapana arthai. Third reason is to re-establish the principles of religion, to re-establish dharma. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I myself appear in every age. So seventh verse, he told about the time, religion and irreligion thing. And eighth verse is telling about the three purposes: to deliver the pious people, to annihilate the miscreants, and then to re-establish the dharma. Okay. And yeah, of course, I mean, the point which I was telling was like, he can do this, he can kill the miscreants by not even appearing here in his personal form. He could have just given a heart attack to Hiranyakashipu. He didn't have to appear from a pillar and all that, but to please his devotees, because Bhakt Prahlad had made the statement that my Lord is present everywhere. And then his father asked, is he present there in the pillar? He said, yes, he's there in the pillar also. So that's why Lord appeared from the pillar, to keep the words of his devotee, to please his devotee. So he takes different types of incarnations for these various pastimes with his devotees, to please his devotees also. So that is a higher purpose. Now, verse number 9. Now, 9 to 10, Krishna is telling in these two verses what is the result of properly knowing, about Krishna's appearance. His appearance is so unique. How it helps us when we understand that. Janam karam cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvatah tyaktva deham punarjanma na eti mam eti. So Arjuna, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, of Arjuna. So this is how special it is to understand about Krishna's appearance. We may know something about Krishna, his birthplace, his parents, his historical facts, but he's saying Tattvataha. We say everybody know about Krishna's appearance, where he appeared and who were his parents, and also, so everybody should attain Krishna's abode. But what is Krishna saying then? Tattvataha means firm conviction in the fact that there are many forms, of the supreme absolute truth, but the supreme form is Krishna, from whom everything emanates. Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So we need to have that faith that Krishna is the original. It's not like Krishna says about his Janm and Karm, and I know it, and that's it. It's not theoretical. One need to have that conviction, that faith, and that faith is then translated into our activities. That's how we become Krishna conscious, by making Krishna the center of our life. Without faith, just knowing he was born in Mathura jail, these were his parents, and this is how then he was moved to Gokul, that doesn't help us. It doesn't work like that, because only when one leads his life based upon this philosophy, this faith, this conviction, then one can achieve the liberation, eternal abode. That is what we have to understand from here. Okay, moving on to verse number 10. Knowers of Krishna love Krishna. Yes, it's the same thing. 9th and 10th verse are telling us this only. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained a transcendental love for me. So Krishna is here giving sort of proof for what he told in verse number 9, that by getting knowledge about me, many people got purified and they attained my nature. Mad bhavam agataha. They got my nature. So this is the proof for the 9th verse. And now from verse number 11 to 15, verse number 11 to 15, Krishna will tell, about how he is the goal of all the paths, and he is the creator of the Varnashram Dharma. Verse number 11. Ye yatha mam prapadyante, as all surrender unto me in the manner. Ye yatha mam prapadyante, in the manner and mood people surrender unto me. Tam statev bhajami aham. I reciprocate with them accordingly. Mama Vartmanu Vardante. Everyone follows my path. That means the paths leading to me directly or indirectly. Manushya Partha Sarvashaha. Oh, in all respects, oh Partha, oh son of Pritha. So everybody is following my path directly or indirectly, and I reciprocate with them accordingly. So here we can understand about like materialistic people. They do karam kand. Gyan yogi, they want to merge in Brahm Jyoti. Ashtang yogi, they meditate upon the Paramatma. And the devotees, they want to serve Krishna. They just want Krishna. So Krishna reciprocates with all of them accordingly. So these are the different paths and how Krishna then reciprocates with them differently. Verse number 12. Now, if by worshipping Krishna, that is the path of the bhakti, one is awarded with whatever he wants, then why do people worship others, demigods or pitras or whatever? Why do they worship them with different material desires? If you worship Krishna, everything will be taken care of. So why do people do that? So in verse number 12, Krishna is telling that men in this world desire success in fruitive activities and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. So this is verse number 12. Those who want quick fulfillment of material desires, then they worship demigods. Demigods fulfill that. So Krishna may or may not fulfill the material desires. If it is not in our favor, if it is not best for us, he will not do it. But devtas, they will do it. Why? Because it's just a business transaction with them. That's their job. If we give them something, they give us something in return. But even devtas are dependent upon the Supreme Lord. Without his sanction, they can't give us. But because we are not approaching our father, our loving, caring father directly, we are going to our uncles and aunts. Uncles and aunt also ask father, but father is like, okay, he's still not getting attracted to me. He thinks that you are more favorable for them. They are doing some austerity at least they are recognizing somebody higher than them. Slowly, then they will recognize that, okay, these desires are not, fulfillment of these desires is not of much help. I'm putting so much effort and money and everything in this worship, but still again and again, I'm having next desire. So then one day they will look up to me, to the loving, kind father. So this is the process. They are at that stage, so let them do that. But the uncles and aunts are also able to do it only because of the Supreme Lord's sanction. That we need to understand. And devtas, that is just the business. We go to a shopkeeper, give him 10 rupees. I mean, a small boy goes, ask for a cigarette packet. He will give. He has got the money. Shopkeeper just wants money. He will not inquire, whom are you buying it for? It's not the right age for you to buy these things and use it for yourself. But if the son gives 10 rupees to father and asks for a cigarette packet, father will directly say no. He will rather snatch the money and give a tight slap also. So that's what Krishna does to us. So we should not be disheartened. If we have some material plans, desires, they're not getting fulfilled, we should understand Krishna is caring for us. He's protecting us. He's loving us. That's his kind nature towards us. And we should not get diverted to worship some demigods for temporary benefits. So this is how people worship demigods for temporary benefit, verse number 12. Now verse number 13. Krishna is telling how he creates the 4 varnas. Now, the path of bhakti and gyan, they give liberation. We understood that. But the path of karma, it leads to bondage. Does it mean that there is some inequality in Krishna? He has only created the different paths. Then why is it that one path is creating bondage and the other paths are giving liberation? No, Krishna is not partial. Krishna has created the 4 varnas for people who have particular desires for enjoyment. They are at different levels. So Krishna has set up a system for their purification. And what is that system? Chaturvaranyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha tasya kartaram api mam vidhi akartaram avyayam. That I created the 4 divisions of human society according to their qualities and work. Qualities means modes. Under what type of mode are those people? Tasya kartaram apimam. And although I am the creator of this system, vidhi, matlab no, akartaram avyayam. Know that I am the non-doer. I am impartial to everybody. I have created, but I am not engaged in these activities. So these are the different varnas Krishna has created. Like Brahmanas are the people who are under the mode of goodness. They have control over their mind and senses. Then Kshatriyas, they are under mode of passion. So their activities are like warfare and wherever administration, heroism. And Vaishyas, they are under the mode of passion plus ignorance. So they do business kind of activities and farming, raising cows. Then Shudras are under the mode of ignorance. So they their tendency is to serve everybody, serve others. So these are, so of course, we all are influenced by different types of modes at different times, but predominantly, they are influenced by these particular modes, and they have those particular qualities and work in that capacity. But it doesn't mean that Brahmana is only under mode of goodness, and these days, of course, it's going crazy. So, but this is predominant mode in them, and accordingly that quality is also predominant. Then verse number 14. Okay. Krishna's work doesn't affect him. Krishna says here that I created the Varnashram system, but I am not affected by it. No karma that affects me. Na mam karma limpanti. No karma limpanti. No karma can contaminate me. Na me karma phale spraha. So he doesn't work for any karma. I don't aspire for the fruits of work. Karam phal. Iti mamiyo abhijananti. One who understands this truth about me, karam bhir na sabadhyate, does not become bound in the reactions of work. So this is Krishna's appearance, Krishna's nature, his glories. We need to understand how he is the Supreme Lord. This can help us free from the bondage. Okay, why Krishna doesn't want any result? He's not attached to the fruit. He doesn't get entangled, because he only is the creator, topmost renunciant. He is not responsible for the activities of living entities also. Whatever mode is influencing us, we are just acting accordingly. He is not partial to anybody. He has created this system for us. There are different examples in this verse given. Purport, 14th verse, how Krishna is not responsible for our activities. One is that how rain is not responsible for the variety of the vegetation. The variety of the vegetation depends upon the seed. The rain falls on all types of seeds. Without rain, no vegetation is possible. We understand that rain is necessary. But the variety of the vegetation, the different types of activities, that depends upon the quality of the seed, the nature of the seed. So different types of activities are happening because of the nature of the living entity. Krishna has created the system that is like a rain. Without that, nothing is possible without his glance. But different vegetation is because of the different quality of the seed. Whatever nature we have, whatever mode is acting upon us. Krishna is not responsible for all that. Verse number 15. Again, Krishna is telling that by understanding this about me, all the liberated souls in ancient times did their work without desire. So you also do your duty following in their footsteps. Okay. So that is the important thing for us to understand from this verse. And now, like how Krishna's appearance, activities, everything is so special, and what is the result of all this? Krishna is again giving proof for it, that in ancient times also, they are the liberated souls who did their work without desire. Or Arjuna, you follow in their footsteps. Now, having said this, one has to work according to the examples of the previous bona fide devotees. So now Krishna will explain why one's action should not be independent. We should follow somebody. Understanding. So Krishna, from verse number 16 to 24, now he will tell about again Karam Yoga, but this is now for Gyanis. Like this is karma yoga on the platform of gyan, having attained the knowledge now how we have to perform our karma. We should not just do what we feel like doing. Our actions should not be independent. Verse number 16 and 17, Krishna is talking about the intricacies of karma. It's very difficult to understand. Even the wise people get bewildered. So Krishna will explain karma, that is action, akarma, that is inaction, and vikarma, that is the forbidden action. Knowing which, Krishna is saying, you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So verse number 16 and 17, Krishna is talking about this. And this karma, akarma, vikarma, we have done it earlier in second chapter also. But again, just a revision, karma is the prescribed duty. And vikarma is the forbidden work, the capricious work. And akarma, this has got three types. The first akarma, what we understand is the devotional service, the actions which do not bear any reaction. That is akarma. The second type of akarma is it is performed by karmis. They don't perform their duties at all, not doing their work at all, avoiding the work, lazy people. And then the third type, that is for the jnanis. So the first type is for the bhaktas. Second type is the karmi, the lazy people. And the third type is for the jnanis. They don't do the duty, they give up the karma because they understand it is binding. So they renounce everything. So these are the three levels of, the three types of karma we understand. Now 18th verse, Krishna is telling, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men. He is in transcendental position, although he is engaged in all sort of actions. So verse number 18, Krishna is telling that. And verse number 19 then. In action, now verse number 19 to 24, Krishna is talking about inaction in action. Inaction in action, what do we understand by that? Detached work. Inaction in action. We are doing action, but still there is inaction in it. That means it's not going to get any reaction. So that is the Karam Yogi, the Nishkam Karam Yogi. So that's what Krishna will talk about over here, verse number 19. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Yes. So Kama Sankalpa Varjita, without a desire for enjoying the fruit. Entanglement comes from a desire to enjoy the fruit. So this person, he gets purified by the transcendental knowledge, which is attained by this Nishkam Karma Yoga. And then this transcendental knowledge, this acts like a fire and it burns the karma which is the cause of the bondage. So transcendental knowledge is like the fire, the karma is like the wood. So this transcendental knowledge, it burns that karma. It frees one from the reactions, from the cause of the bondage. By performing Nishkam Karma Yoga, this fire is ignited. And this fire, then it burns the karma. I hope that is clear. Okay, so we need to understand that it's not the karma, not the activity which is problem, but the mentality, the consciousness. That's what makes the difference. This is the essence we need to understand from here. Nishkam Karam Yoga, it results in transcendental knowledge, then which burns the reactions of the karma. So we have to act the same activity we can perform by not being attached to the result. With proper consciousness, we have to perform that. Then no reaction. Okay, so this is 19th. And 20th, he's telling about the stage of the practice, sadhana. And 21st to 23rd, Krishna will talk about the stage of the perfection then. So how we perform our. So these are basically symptoms of a Nishkam Karmi Yogi. When he's at the sadhana level, And then when he's at a perfection level, he has become a siddha. So what is it? So verse number 20. Karma phala sangam, tyaktva karma phal sangam. So he has given the karma phal, tyaktva. Therefore, nitya tripto, no hankering, he is always satisfied. Nitya tripto, triptevo. Nirashraya, he is independent, he is not dependent upon others for fulfillment of his desires. So these are the symptoms. Krishna is talking about the qualities. So one is satisfied, he leads a simple life, doesn't depend upon others too much. He just, simple life. So therefore, of course, no dependent upon others for fulfillment of his hankerings. And verse number 21, Krishna is telling, Nirashir yata chittatma, tyakta sarva parigraha, shriram kevalam karma, kurvan apnoti kilbisham. So nirashir, without desire for the result. We did it. So this is very important for us to understand here. No desire for result. That's everywhere. We are just understanding that in this section now. And then what is it? Yat chittatma. Chittatma. Mind and senses are controlled. Tyaktva sarva parigraha. Giving up proprietorship mentality. This is mind, controlling mentality, possessiveness. He doesn't have that. That is, Prabhupada says that that's a doggish mentality. A dog thinks that this is my property, no other dog should come here, he starts barking. So we need to understand what is actually mine. Just accumulating things for temporary use. Actually, everything belongs to Krishna. So we need to understand all that. So this person, he works only to maintain body and soul together. Shariram kevalam karma. Just for his sharir, body and soul, he's working. Okay. So Jiva, a living entity, he needs to understand that who is the real possessor, proprietor, who is the real controller, and whom do we belong to. Even our body and mind, senses, everything is under somebody else's control. So according to his will and desire, things will happen. We are his part and parcel. So if we serve him, if we act for him, then only we can be happy. We have to act like sold out animals. We are sold out animals in the hands of the Supreme. Manas Dehe, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he tells this, Manas Deha Gehe, Jo Kuch Mora, Arpit Toy Padai, Nand Kishora. Whatever I have, I offer it at your Pade, your lotus feet on Nand Kishore. This mind, this body, this house, I offer it to you. No proprietorship or possessiveness mentality. But we work only for bare necessities. And that too by not engaging in any unfair means. Then we are happy. Okay. So moving on to verse number 22. Yadricha labha santushto. Satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord. Yadricha. जो अपने आप आएगा लाभ संतुष्टो, is satisfied. Then is dvandvito vimatsaraha, becomes atitah, surpassed to the dvandva. Dvandva is dualities like victory, defeat, success, failure, happiness, distress. He has crossed that atita. To the degree one is attached to the result, to that degree he is affected by the dualities. Na nibhadyante. So vimatsare, not envious, because envy is due to the hankerings and desires to have what others have. But when one is satisfied with what he has, he doesn't have any desires, then no envy, no fruity mentality. Sama siddhava siddhavu. So he's equipoised in both success and failure. Kritvapi na nibhadyante. So he's not bound even though he is working. So this is inaction in action. This is how we have to work. Verse number 23. So when one works in this consciousness, what is the result then? The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Gata Sangasya, not influenced by the modes, Muktasya, he is on the liberated platform then. Even being here, what's the time? Even if we are we are here in the material world, but we are not, if we are working with this consciousness, that person is on the liberated platform. Verse number 24. Let me just check the time. Are we running late? No. Yeah, good. Okay. Verse number 24. Now, verse number 24 is the, it's going to tell us about now yajna in spiritual consciousness. That yajna means sacrifices, how we have to do it in a spiritual consciousness, and then it leads to the spiritual goal. So this is the essence of the entire chapter here. Now here Krishna is describing yajna, because in the previous verse he told when one works in transcendental knowledge, his work becomes yajna. Yajna, what was that word here? Yajna achratah karma. Gata sangasya muktasya ज्ञानवस्थित चेतसः यज्ञ आचरतः कर्म. So when one works with jnana, without the effect of the modes, gata sangasya, not influenced by the modes, muktasya, he is on the liberated platform, jnanavastya chetasa, he is working in transcendental knowledge, then what happens is his work that becomes a yajna. So now in this section now here, verse number 24 onwards, he is talking about the yajna. So various components of the yajna is telling. So the shloka number 24. Brahma arpanam Brahma havir. By spiritual oblations with spiritual instruments. Brahma ganau Brahmana hutam. Offered into spiritual fire by the spiritual person. Brahma eva tena gantavyam. One surely attains the spiritual kingdom. Brahma karma samadhina. By being absorbed in spiritual activities. So one should perform actions for the purpose of yajna. Now, what type of yajna is this? That is what Krishna is explaining here now till verse number 33. He will be talking about this now. So Brahma, the word here which is used again and again, it is spiritual. So the Lord is spiritual. The rays of his transcendental body, that's why called Brahma Jyoti. They are spiritual effulgence. And yajna is not just fire sacrifice, but any activity which is performed to attain a goal, an activity or sacrifice which is done in spiritual consciousness for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu or Krishna, that is called yajna. Now, having explained that this yajna, the sacrifice, it covers Brahman. Now Krishna will list different types of yajnas, different types of sacrifices from verse number 25 to 33. He's talking about different types of sacrifices. Verse number 25 is telling us for Karam Yogis, demigod worship. Karam Yogis, they worship the demigods by different sacrifices. Devam eva pare yajnam yogenaha parupasate. So these are the Deva worship, 25th verse. And in the second line, he's talking about Brahman worship, Jnani Yogis. So the first line tells about Karam Yogi sacrifice, that is demigod worship. The second line talks about Brahman worship, that is the sacrifice performed by the Jnani Yogis, impersonalist. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some other sacrifice in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. So the Supreme Brahman, these are the impersonalist people. And in every sacrifice, we have, the contributor, the contribution, the consuming agent. Okay, so contributor, contribution, and then is the consuming agent. So in this Jnana Yogi sacrifice, it is said that the contribution is himself. He's contributing himself. Why? Because he wants to merge in the Supreme Brahman. That's why Prabhupada says it's spiritual suicide. So contributor is okay, that Jnana Yogi, and contribution is himself, and consuming agent is the Supreme Brahman. And verse number 26, Krishna is talking about other types of sacrifice. Again, the first line of 26th verse, it talks about the sacrifice by the brahmacharis, mind control. Brahmacharis offer their senses in the fire of mind control. So contributor, contribution, and the consuming agent. So you just keep understanding with these three words here. Here the contributor is brahmachari, and he's offering, the contribution is his senses. And what is the consuming agent? That is the mind control. He's controlling the mind, regulating senses. Then verse number is the second line is sense enjoyment. That is talking about the grasta, sacrifice by the grastas. So 26th verse ka the first word, shrotra indriyani anye. So indriyani, senses, that is for the brahmacharis. And the second line, shabdadin vishayan anya indriyagnisu juhyati. So vishayan, that is the objects of sense gratification. That part is telling about the grastas. So the second line is the sacrifice by the grastas. They offer sense objects in the fire of senses. So regulated sense gratification. That is the sacrifice by the grastas. Verse number 27, it's talking about self-control. This is by the Ashtanga yogis. So these are the followers of Patanjali yoga system, or the Ashtanga yogis, how they control themselves. So they offer the functions of their different senses and life airs, and in the fire of self-control. So this is their sacrifice. Verse number 28 again. Verse number 28, we understand about four things. There are four parts in this verse number 28. We understand about charity here, dravya yagya. Dravya yagya, the very first word here, that is sacrificing one's possessions, dravya, the wealth, the possessions. That is the charity. Okay. Second yagya, that is tapo yagya. Tapo yagya, that is talking about the austerities or sacrifices by performing some austerities, undergoing something uncomfortable, getting out of your comfort zone. So that is the austerity, tapo yagya. The third thing here we understand is yoga yagya. Yoga yagya means the practice of the eightfold yoga system, that is mysticism, Ashtanga yoga type. Then we understand about the swadhyay jnana yagya. Swadhyay is studying the Vedas. So this is scriptural study to advance in transcendental knowledge. So these are the different types of sacrifices we understand here. And in all these yagyas, because one is sacrificing wealth or comfort or his mind or his intelligence, so that's why he's making progress. So he's doing it for some higher goal. So dravya yagya, tapo yagya, then is yoga yagya, then is swadhyaya yagya. So everywhere somebody is sacrificing something. And verse number 29, Krishna is talking about pranayam. It's a part of the Ashtanga yoga only. So Krishna is talking about that separately here. Okay, and then verse number, it's 9:6 already. Okay. Let's see, let's cover up at least this much. Yeah, we'll try to cover up till verse number 33. So because then there will be next section, so we can do that next time. So we are on verse number now 30. Okay. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice, verse number 30. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. So what happens? Krishna tells about the result of performing these sacrifices. Two results. First one is one becomes free from kalmasha. The first line, the last part, yagya shapita kalmasha. So one becomes free from all the sinful reactions, kalmasha, contaminations. The second reason is one tastes the nectar, the amrit. Yajna shishta amrita bhujo. So one tastes the nectar, the amrit. One tastes the spiritual happiness. And as a result of this, then one proceeds towards the spiritual world because he's getting purified. He's getting something higher. Yanti Brahma Santanam. So he keeps moving towards the supreme goal. So this is the result of performing sacrifice. Any type of sacrifice. We have to just do it with, have to sacrifice something as well. And verse number 31, Krishna is now talking about without sacrifice, what happens? The result of not performing the sacrifice. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? Next, though, it's ruined. This life, maybe that person can't be happy. Yeah. Ayagnasya. The word here is ayagnasya. That means not performing the yajna. So even to live happily in this life, we have to make some sacrifices. How? By performing of the yajna, devtas are pleased. They provide the basic necessities, to be happy in this life. So if somebody is not even doing that much, then he can't be happy here too. Okay, verse number 32 then. Yeah, so all of these yajnas, they are approved by Vedas. Krishna is telling here, Brahmano Mukhe. So Krishna is confirming that it's not just I who is speaking about, these types of yajnas. They are there in Vedas. And actually Vedas is what? It's coming out of Krishna's breathing only. But is still confirming it here. That don't take it, lightly. It's not that I am just telling you something new. They are mentioned in the Vedas also. This is verse number 32. All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. And verse number 33, it's an important verse. We will conclude with this verse today. So Shreyan. Shreyan, the word here, the very first word, that is greater or better. Now, what is better? Shreyan dravya mayad yagyan jnana yagnaha parantapa. So sacrifice of material possessions, then is sacrifice of knowledge. So Krishna is going to tell what is better. So here Krishna is talking about the consciousness in which a yajna is performed. Better than performing it in material consciousness, it is to perform it in spiritual consciousness or in knowledge. With proper knowledge, we should perform. Jnana yajna parantapa. Shreyan dravya mayad yajna, jnana yajna parantapa. So we should do the yajna with proper knowledge, with proper consciousness. So all these yajnas can be performed in both the consciousness, material consciousness or spiritual consciousness, and accordingly, then we get the result. For example, I'll just try to keep it short, but so dravya maya yajna, dravya maya yajna. If we sacrifice dravya, that is wealth, for hospitals or for orphanages or any other type of charity, then we get the result. What is the result? The result is that we can get a better, things in this life itself. We get good name, fame, honor, and next life also we will get multifold of whatever we are giving here now. Give 100 rupees now, you get 1000 rupees in return, or we go to Swargaloka. So that is the one type of consciousness we do dravya yajna. And other person, he may give the wealth in charity to brahmanas for getting liberation. This is also a yajna, but this is in knowledge for a spiritual cause. And the ultimate for us, what we should be doing is giving charity to the Vaishnavas for pleasing Krishna. So what will make Krishna happy? What will make our Guru happy? If we do any yajna with that consciousness, that is the ultimate. So performing yajna, it definitely purifies us, but different type of consciousness gives us different result. So either material consciousness or spiritual consciousness, it applies to all the yajnas, all the activities we do. So Krishna here is saying that better is yajna performed in spiritual knowledge for liberation, for something ultimate. Okay, and now in the next verse, that is verse number 34 to 42, we will cover it up next time. Here Krishna will be telling that, okay, we have to do the yajna with proper knowledge. Now, in order to receive the knowledge, one has to approach the spiritual master. So that is the next section now. It will be summary of the transcendental knowledge. So any questions for today's session? Any comments, any realizations, anything you want to add or share? Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. So everything is clear. Okay. That's good.
We have
Okay.
discussed extensively previously also, Mataji. We'll go through the chapters, and if some question comes.
Yes. Yes, Mataji. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week ahead. Happy Krishna conscious week. And yeah, we'll meet maybe next Saturday now. So we'll pray for all of you in Vrindavan.
Yes.
Radharani's mercy to get to go there. So Hare Krishna, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.